Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sound Vibes. And welcome to Sound Vibes episode. I don't know what episode this is. The name is Nate, and that's Patty McD. What up, Patty? What's up?
Oh man, that's the most abrupt intro ever. But I liked it.
It was different. It was tried, tested, and I didn't try it at all. That was just it was completely improv.
Like I think that I was like, what?
What is he
hell?
doing?
Yeah.
What?
But why, Nathan? Why? And then it all made sense.
Look, I will not ever screw up an intro, ever.
I will.
Yeah,
That's
you
why
will.
I'm so reluctant to do them.
Anyway, if you haven't heard us before, we are the two most uneducated people on the planet. Please feel free to give us a shout on social media and tell us how opinionated and how terrible we are. Thank you. We'll see you guys next time. Look, we came off an episode last week with what was last week, wasn't it?
Social media etiquette.
Yeah, and honestly, that topic depressed me.
Well, it's not a cheerful topic.
It completely depressed me. So today, we are going to talk about something a little bit more in my wheelhouse.
The good stuff.
Well, my wheelhouse doesn't always contain the good stuff. I'm just putting it out there. But today, especially, we're talking about stagecraft.
Yeah.
Which is one of my loves in music.
Yeah.
And is one of my, so I've been told, strong suits.
Yeah.
And Patrick here is going to give us a rundown on the contents of today's episode in a brief moment. But first, we are going to just ask you guys, please, and this has been a daunting task at best to actually pull some feedback. But if you've got some feedback for us,
oh hell yeah, let us know.
And you want to hear us talk about something very particular that needs to be talked about, that we haven't covered in the last, I don't know how many episodes, please let us know on social media.
Yeah.
Give us a shout on Blended Podcasts. We haven't got a Sound Vibes page yet because, you know, we want to help build the brand of Blended Podcasts.
Yeah.
So give us a shout on there, and we will answer you as best as we can, as quick as we can.
And if we don't have the information, we'll freaking find it.
We will find it.
Yeah.
We will look.
Or like we'll find someone to like drag in here kicking and screaming.
Absolutely. So yeah, with that said, Patty.
Yeah, stagecraft.
Yeah.
All right, so Nate said this is one of his strong suits, and I must admit it's a passion of mine as well. And it actually surprised me it took us this long to get to the discussion.
Yeah.
But I guess a lot of the time, you know, we're trying to talk about as broad topics as possible.
Yeah.
But if we talk about stagecraft, what are we actually describing? So, you know, to a lot of people, it's like, well, you're a performer, you get on stage, you do what you do, and that's that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's fine, but is it enough?
No.
So stagecraft is about not only performing your music, but creating a performance.
Yes.
Which transcends the music alone. So it's about how you use the stage, how you use the space allocated to you on that stage.
How you move your body. Oh,
Yeah.
you gotta sort of project your music through body language as well, which I feel is very important.
Absolutely.
A lot of guitarists, especially, I've noticed, struggle with that, especially if the music's very intricate and they need to focus on their fretboards. They find it very difficult to actually balance the playing of the tune and actually, you know, showing your audience that, you know, you're still with them. You're not with your instrument, you're with them.
Yeah.
Which is very, very important and it's very much an underrated skill to have. Because I don't think a lot of people really understand that, you know, your audience is kind of like your online engagement.
In a way, they should be an extension of your performance.
Yes. And, you know, what I find is if you're not conveying the music in your body language and in your emotion and your interaction, your crowd interaction, is another very important point. You know, your crowd's sort of just going to look at you and maybe they'll appreciate the music 100%, but they would appreciate the overall performance and the art of it so much more if there was, more meat in the pie, you know?
I'll tell you what your crowd doesn't appreciate.
Oh boy. What does my crowd not appreciate? Please tell me.
No, not yours specifically, but in general, I've attended a lot of gigs in my lifetime.
Yes.
And I mean a lot. And what has always surprised me is how you sometimes get a band who on stage is not very energetic or engaging.
Yeah.
But then the vocalist or someone in the band who unfortunately has access to a microphone
He is looking at me.
will actually belittle the audience.
What?
Yeah.
What? No. No.
Yeah, like I've seen so many times like, come on guys, come on, get in front of the stage, come on, look lively, da, 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 da. And it's like, bruh, like
You're insulting your audience.
the audacity.
Yeah, that's a bit, no.
Yeah. So part of stagecraft, the way I see it, is the realization that like your audience is not there to entertain you.
It's the other way around.
You are there to entertain them. And the best possible show is when everyone is feeling that they're in it together, the way you described earlier on. It's like, don't be with your instrument or with your microphone. Like, be with your audience.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's no better way of putting it. You have to just be, again, with them, in their shoes, with them, in their circle, in their space. You have to sort of push your music into them, through them. Not just put it in front of them and like, hey, look what we're doing,
Yeah.
In some cases, music can be enjoyed from afar, where you don't necessarily have to be in the thick of it.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't excuse you from not putting that extra effort value into that stage performance.
Yeah.
If your music is not tight enough, and this is something that I've experienced firsthand, if your music is not tight enough, you will suckle to have that proper crowd engagement, because you are so focused on making sure that the music is clinically tight.
True.
And a lot of the time I see, and I keep going back to guitarists because I notice this a lot.
Hey, are you trying to take a dig at me?
No, dude, not at all. The few times I've seen you live, and I say few times because it feels like it's been forever since I've seen you on stage.
It has been.
The few times that I've seen you, you whip your locks into it. You go boss, and you feel that you're into it, and you're giving that to your audience, and that is what needs to be done. You need to give it to them. And, a lot of guitarists I've seen, and please guys, I'm not taking digs at all guitarists here. I'm just saying from what I've seen.
Brother.
Hey,
remember, there's more guitarists out there than vocalists, huh?
Well, okay, cool. That's great.
We still might take you out.
Okay. I noticed, and I, in my own capacity, from a fan perspective, I look at the guitarist and they'll be playing this beautiful solo. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And you'll see some of them, they just get into it. They got their eyes closed and they're swinging the axe everywhere. And they're just thoroughly enjoying it. And people can resonate with that. But the minute they are standing in like a stationary position, somewhere in park, and they're looking at the fretboard, and every 5 seconds they'd look up at the audience with like this nervous look on their face.
And then quickly look away again.
And then they quickly look away and they're looking back at the instrument, and I'm like, dude, go back and just watch that yourself and put yourself in the fan's shoes and be like, am I going to enjoy that? Am I going to feel what you're giving to me right now, or am I just going to be like, oh, that was pretty cool? There's more to it. There's more, meat in the pie. I don't know why I keep using that.
Fair. You've taken a dig at guitarists. I'm going to take a dig at vocalists.
Go for it. Shoot me.
Have you ever noticed sometimes when you're watching a band play and the vocalist spends more time facing towards the drummer than he does facing towards his audience?
Yes.
Or her audience.
All the time.
Like gender specific, but it's like...
I've actually... I was called out on that once.
You even?
Me even.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, actually, can I name drop? Can I name drop?
Yeah, why not?
So a buddy of mine, Gavin, Gavin Marchbank.
Oh,
If you're listening, I really, really appreciate his frontman work
Yeah.
because he's next level. But he called me out once, and he basically said to me, "Dude, leave your table view emo phase at home."
Yeah.
And you know, and face your audience and make them feel it, because
Yeah.
he said to me, now I was looking down the whole time. I was looking back at the drummer. I wasn't properly engaging. And it was kind of a frightening wake-up call for me, because I didn't realize that I was doing it in that performance. And that particular day, I was feeling rather stiff and feeling not too lacquer. Because in performances prior to that, I managed to actually do somewhat of a good job, at least in that regard. And people have come to me and said, lacquer, you did good in this, and this. But
Well,
then,
I suppose good thing he spotted you on that day
yeah,
to give you that information that you better shape up
exactly,
regardless what's happening in the background.
Exactly. And I took that to heart. And then the next few shows I did after that, it was sitting like a little birdie in my ear,
Yeah.
the back of my head, just like every now and again, just saying, listen, there's your audience. That's who you're singing to. You're not singing to your drummer. You're not singing to the floor. If you need to look at the floor for whatever reason, don't do it for too long. Do it for like a few seconds if you have to. But I felt that. It hit me hard, and I really had to go and carry myself to a higher sort of level in terms of stage craft.
Well, I suppose here's an idea, hey? Like, to anyone who might be listening and like thinking, how can we make our live show more like hurrah?
Yeah.
So something we used to do way back in the day, like, I'm not sure why we did it the first time, probably just to stir our egos a little bit and say, look, we were a band, we're awesome. But we had this old, like in those days, it was still VCR video cameras, big things.
Yeah.
So we used to set this thing up and like film our show. And I remember watching some of this footage of us performing live and cringing at how awful we carried ourselves on stage.
Yeah.
Like, it was dreadful. Like, just looking at myself, for example, I used to do the whole floor gazing thing. Like,
oh dear.
Like pretending the audience wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I used to do this weird, like, almost like a shuffle, like one foot forward and then the other one, like, I don't know how to describe it, except this very awkward shuffle. And it's like, no, bro. This shit has to change.
That sounds like a...
Yeah. But then we actually thought, all right, well, let's keep filming our shows to self-critique.
Yeah.
And we learned so much through that process. Because, when you're on stage, it's easy to lose yourself in those moments of, you were talking about tightness early on, trying to do everything so correct that you fear being distracted by something cool happening out there in the audience, or someone, like something I used to find actually quite unnerving was eye contact.
Yeah.
Like sometimes someone in the front row is actually staring right at you.
Yes.
And now you meet their eye and it's like, oh fuck. Then quickly look away and it's like, so like, what was it? I think it was anxiety. It was like, what if I mess this up? These people are expecting me to do better.
Yeah.
So it was a certain amount of anxiety. But what I've also learned is that when you're anxious on stage, which let's face it, often you are.
Yeah.
You mustn't let it show.
No, not at all.
So like over the years, like I've learned like that eye contact is actually a very special moment.
Yes.
And when it happens, you must amplify it. You must rather let them be the first ones to look away. You know what I mean? There's a lot of power in that eye contact. And even if you mess your riffs up, it's like, it's fine as long as it's not catastrophic. But I think a lot of that comes with experience and confidence. Are you able to recover your piece swiftly?
Yeah.
Which in those early days, maybe not. But Something else we did was we worked with some session guitarists in our long years. There's been times where members couldn't perform for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And we worked with one session guy who was brilliant. But we were already quite established as a band, so, reasonably high profile as far as these things go. So we wanted someone who could ace the stuff quite quickly so that we didn't have to cancel the show.
Naturally.
And we found the guy and he was freaking brilliant. But what we noticed is that while he was so good, he was more concerned about the tightness than about enjoying being on stage. So when the time came that we had to work with another guy, we actually looked at that as a criteria. We need someone who actually enjoys performing, not only playing guitar as well as he possibly can. And I think the performances that came out of that, the experience from the audience point of view was better. Having a guy who does a few little minor slips here and there, but who's more engaged with the show than like getting everything clinically precise.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen things before where like the band members also sort of tend to gravitate towards each other, and they sort of help each other along when they're feeling a little bit anxious, or if they've messed up a part or whatever the case is. They'll look at each other and there'll be like a silent communication in the air. But I've drawn reassurance from that in the past, and there's been times where I've like completely messed up, and it's funny though, because in my band in particular, a lot of the guys don't really know when I'm messing up because they're not focused on that. They're focused on their own thing. It's more me paying attention to everyone else, which is something I actually need to stop doing because I don't find it very conducive to my own performance.
Okay,
but there's been times where I've messed up and I look across and I see, one of the guys just having a good time and enjoying it. And I'm like, okay, well, if he's still having a good time, that means they're still having a good time. I look at the crowd and then I'm like, oh, cool. Then, I can just let this one go. And coming to that understanding with yourself is very, very tricky. But once you've got it down, then you've got it down, But what I would like to see more from other bands and such, when they find that sweet spot of doing the music well, doing the interaction well, and actually coming up, I suppose, in the quote-unquote ranks of whatever scene they're in, and watching them just captivate an audience because they're all engaging, not just the front man, but everyone. That's what I want to see more of, and I would take inspiration from that, as an artist myself. Like I would love to just absorb that into me and be able to convey that to the guys in my band or in another project or whatever the case is. And once you have that dynamic and you can polish it and get it down, then you can start working on other things that require the attention. But I feel that this particular function, or what would you call it, like this particular sphere of your performance, your stagecraft. It's the episode name, come on. Once you've got that down, I feel that is of the utmost importance, first and foremost. Like, obviously the music always will come first, but after that, like, your next point of call should be stagecraft. Yeah.
All right, so like, I reckon let's bounce a few thoughts back and forward of like what we feel makes up good or strong stagecraft. One thing I always find worth commenting on is the fact that most stages, well, I say most because not all stages are created equal, obviously, but most stages are, in fact, did you know, a 3-dimensional space?
Really?
I shit you not.
Wow, that's news to my ears.
But a lot of time I watch bands and I think, but these guys are only using the stage as a 2-dimensional space.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is unfortunate because there's so much opportunity. And think of how the music is often written, right? when you're writing, presumably good or strong music, there's space, there's ebb and flow.
Yeah.
There's punctuation marks. There are times in a song where this happens and where that happens. And where those respective things happen, there's usually a stronger emphasis on one or the other performer.
Yeah.
So when you have a three-dimensional space, it's like you don't have to all be trying to hog the front spotlight
Yeah.
all the time, which I see a lot of bands trying to do. Like some guys are a bit insecure about their importance in the band. And often I think rightly so.
Yeah.
Because sometimes other members are not giving them the space they need to have their moment of shine, when instrumentally speaking, it's perfectly due to them.
Yeah.
I think use of the stage as a three-dimensional space, as a team who performs, like you guys need to have a little bit of a analysis of your songs. When is a good time for some of the members to actually take 2 steps back from the very front of the stage? When is a good time for everyone to just build that wall right in front? Use that space. I would say most of the time you actually want your vocalist just half a step further than anyone else, most of the time. But there's other times where actually your vocalist should almost try and make himself or herself invisible on stage. Like, I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but you get the idea. Sort of slink away a bit, let the instrumentalists feature.
Yes.
And that is what I think of when I use the word stagecraft. That is what I think about it. People functioning as a team, as a single unit, rather than just as the individual. But each individual has to be on board with this vision.
That is really, really conducive to a healthy stage environment. However, to convey that in a way that is positive can be very, very difficult sometimes, especially
when dealing with the people that it affects.
Look, the thing is, if you can't establish yourself as you said, a team, and guys are too stressed and too worried about other aspects that they need to work on, they don't find that what we're talking about right now is an absolute necessity. They sort of put it on the back burner. They don't think about it because what they're busy focusing on is the music and getting that right first. I suppose in my experience, I would say that I have experience with very technical, difficult to play stuff, so I speak from that background. So I can't speak from someone who plays in a very simplistic, small but effective kind of vibe. But from a very technical band standpoint, it is very difficult to convey to people that are so engulfed with their instrument.
Granted. But I think that's also a thing of, all right, to have that conversation is probably going to be tough.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To assert into the team space that like this is something we want and that will be beneficial.
Yes,
will be tough. But I think once everyone has come around to the realization that this could be good, it's just a bit of mental preparation.
I think so.
It's not actually hard to do. It's hard to think about and to come to terms with, maybe. But to execute is actually really easy. You let the music think it out for you. What is the song doing? Now each person needs to see where do they fit into that song at that particular point of time, and then to consider how does that place them in this three-dimensional space called the stage.
You know what helps with all of this? Wireless. Which is another topic for another day.
Yes, granted, that does help, but it's not essential to use a wireless in order to grow in your stagecraft.
No, absolutely not, but it helps.
You will reach a point naturally where your growth is encumbered by the lack of a wireless. Certainly that day will come. But I mean, a lot of the stages we play at, let's call it local scene level. Hell, like I said earlier on,
pubs.
Those stages are barely three-dimensional spaces, but yet they are. If you're able to take one step forward and one step back, you are operating in a three-dimensional space, because you can certainly move side to side as well. And you can, if you really have to, you can jump up and down too. So
if you really have to. I think a lot of bands do that just because they can.
Well, as long as you're not going to hit your head on a freaking overhanging speaker or light or something.
I've done that
in
before.
some venues is like a real risk.
I did that at Mercury once. I walked into a speaker.
I've done that at Mercury many times.
It was mid-solo, and, I was walking, as you said earlier, I was giving the guitarists the space they needed. And I was walking like stage right, and I didn't see the damn overhead, and I walked straight into it. And because my character on stage is a psycho, I had to make it part of the...
Yeah, just blend it in.
I just had to blend it in, and I acted a little bit concussed, and then I just hugged the wall afterwards, and I'm like, for comfort. I'm like, I'm so sorry. What have I done?
Dude, which guitarist in Minusol do you think always plays stage right at Mercury?
Oof. Is it you?
I know that bloody speaker very well, my friend.
Yeah.
We are intimate. I won't say friends, but we are intimate.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah, so look, three-dimensional space. Think about it.
Yeah.
But what I do realize is this is quite a large topic. I don't know. Should we do another episode someday soon?
No.
Because I feel we've only just got started.
I think we could.
Hey? How about next week?
Next week? You want to do it next week?
Oh, we can postpone next week's topic.
Yo, what wasn't it? I don't even want to look at the schedule. That schedule is detrimental to my health. Anyway.
All right, guys, if you've enjoyed Stagecraft, we're going to give you more Stagecraft.
Yo, it's like we didn't even give them a chance. It's like, you want it? Well, tough shit. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to Sound Vibes. Please check out Sound Vibes and all the other podcasts on the Blended Audio / Blended Podcast Network. And yeah, we will gladly be talking about this again next week. And if you have enjoyed it, please leave us a comment, inbox us, do what you have to do, tell us how much we suck, and also please give us as much suggestions as you possibly can, what you want to hear about, and we'll see what we can dig up and cover it for you.
I'll wear.
Yeah.
Thank you and cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for listening to us ramble on about all things music and sound here on Sound Vibes, produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.